what is the goal of having such intelligence?
The goal of intelligence is to guide oneself through life, right, without being carried away by their attachments and by their desires. We have the example that some people, and this happens to everybody, not just some people, that we go shopping, we come home with more than we wanted to get in the first place. You know, why did that happen? We go out for one thing, we come back for 15. Why did that happen? It happened because we saw something that was attractive, and we went after it. You know, or another example, we're thinking about things that we want, but we cannot have because we don't have the means. Why? Is that healthy? Because then we become frustrated, and then we become angry. So is it healthy to contemplate things that we don't really need or have the ability to get? Is it you know, it's not to say that we shouldn't pursue our dreams, but we should be careful how we cultivate desires. We should be careful how we cultivate. Now the intelligence is in charge of directing the activities of the mind so we don't cultivate the kind of desires that get us into trouble. Intelligence is there also to tell you this pursuit or this proposition is good for you, or in this proposition is not good for you. You know, so therefore we should strengthen our intelligence.
Right. So talking about desires, there is a saying that men are more intelligent than women.
Oh my gosh! I'm so glad you asked this question. This is what's on everybody's mind, right? So let's try to understand this question by looking again. You know, let's try to use logic, reason, and argument. Let's not get emotional, right? People, men and women, are so much prone to having an emotional response. They become angry, you know? We have to learn tolerance, of course, but it's better just to learn self-control. So the thing about this is, like, first of all, what is intelligence again? It means the power of analyzing a thing in proper perspective. And what interferes with that, which we were talking about, right? Now, of course, you have to keep in mind this definition is coming from the philosophy of religion.
Sure.
And I mean, I'm not going to talk about the Encyclopedia Britannica because I don't study it.
Sure.
I study the philosophy of religion.
Right.
And that's why you interview me. Because you want to know the opinion of religious philosophy.
Yes.
For the academic world, right? The community of academics. Mostly non-theistic personalities. And this is it. So, what interferes with that are any kind of a bias, a prejudice, right? Any kind of a bias, a preconceived attachment for a result, a fear. A fear is also like an attachment. You know, it's an aversion, really. Yeah, but people will use very poor decision-making skills when they're afraid of an outcome, a potential outcome. They will try to avoid it by twisting the truth. For example, right? So it's not about women or men being more intelligent than the other. It's about not allowing our fears, our attachments, our aversions, our likes and our dislikes, our desires and our hatred, not letting these emotions interfere with our decision-making skills. That person who is able to do that is more intelligent. Man, woman, this doesn't make a difference.
Does sexuality have something to do or can influence your intelligence?
You know, sexuality. I'm glad you asked this question also because it allows me to talk about something which needs to be spoken about from the perspective of religious philosophy. You know, there are so many myriads of sexual, I would like to say, well, there's really only a couple of sexual preferences, a few probably. I hope I'm not offending anybody, you know, but and really, from the perspective of religious philosophy, I think what the bottom line is, in all of my studies, what I can learn is that we don't really want to follow you into your bedroom. You know, we're not interested in what you do underneath the covers. However, what does interest an individual is in the interest of society, is what do you give? What's your contribution? You know, never mind your sexuality, but it's still important you ask this question because it needs to be answered and it needs to be asked. It's not about your. This is not a concern really of religious philosophy from an academic perspective, right? This is a concern. What we are concerned with is like, what do you give back? What's your contribution to society? What is your service? Now, we cannot, this is very important. Let me talk briefly about this. You cannot avoid serving. Everybody serves somebody. Even if you live alone in the woods, and I've done this a couple of times in my life, in a small cabin, if you're lucky, you have a cabin, it's good stuff. It's cold. Anyway, even in that situation, you're a servant of somebody, right? You're serving your own urges. The urge to speak, the actions of the mind, the demands of the mind, the actions of frustration and anger, right? You're urged and pushed by the bodily demands to act. So even if you live alone, you serve somebody. If you live in a family, right, you serve your family. If you are the kind of person who's, caring about other individuals. If you live in a community, you serve the community if you care, right? If you live in a society and so on and so forth. If you care about the earth, you serve it by picking up the trash.
Yes.
So what we're really concerned about is, what is your service? It doesn't matter what color you are, what your ethnic background is, what language you speak, what your socioeconomic background is. What is your, maybe you're the president of some corporation, whatever. Well, what is your service to society? What are you giving back? Because you are benefiting from the roads that were built. Some people are very proud of their education. They think, well, I worked hard, I got a good education. Let me tell you, sir, you would not have earned that education had that university not been there. Thank you very much. You would not have gotten that opportunity had people not volunteered their time to teach or gotten paid to teach. Somebody else made a sacrifice somewhere in their life and pursued an education instead of an opportunity for employment in the short term. They worked hard and studied for employment in the long term. Now they're teaching, and you, or they're a student, therefore you're benefited. And let me tell you one more thing. You cannot pay enough to get some kinds of knowledge. Some kinds of knowledge are invaluable. So really the question again is, what do you give back? What's your contribution? We're less concerned about gender than we are about contribution.
Nice. And